So all of our dreamers have been anticipating our first, well actually our second Christmas release, since we do a Christmas in July release every July to kind of help you get prepped for the season, but there's nothing quite like crafting Christmas during the Christmas season. And it especially feels like Christmas this year with the snow that we already have on the ground and the January-like temperatures. But today we're going to put together a much desired and much requested piece. It's our first gingerbread house. And a little quick story while I get some pieces ready here. Was actually we were having lunch with our engineer, Diana, well I was, and she was showing me the prototype in a public restaurant basically, and there was a 9-year-old or 10-year-old girl a couple doors or a couple tables down who, as soon as she saw her pull it out, just exclaimed wow out of nowhere. It was the cutest thing, and I think it's gonna kind of well, I think you guys are going to have the same reaction once you have it all put together. So anyway, so one thing that I like to do initially is I like to get the vellum out of the way. Okay, so these two pieces that I have here, you don't need to get these out just yet. These two pieces make up the side of our house, and these are the actual panels. We're going to glue the windows on, but before we do, you're going to want to find the vellum pieces that are kind of shaped similar to this. Of course, they're going to be a little bit bigger so that we make sure that we don't miss anything. But find these two. They kind of look like little kites. Okay, and then you're going to want to find these two pieces that look kind of like this. This is what we call a panel, and this, because it has tabs, is more of the structural piece. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to glue the vellum onto the back of our structural pieces here. Okay, so you can see how it's kind of got a little kite shape. Well, we're going to go ahead and get this glued down just to get it out of the way. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to work our way through piece by piece just to make sure that we get everything done correctly and methodically. Okay, so we're just going to put this piece of vellum on the back of this piece just like that. Then we can put that off to the side. And again, this is the inside, not the outside. This is AC cardstock. My texture is here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get our glue just around that window and just pop that right into place. And if you've got a little, because it is a little oversized on purpose, if you got a little bit too much hanging off, just throw a little extra glue on there so it sits nice and flush. All right, so we can also put that off to the side. And now we'll go ahead and put these pieces on to the panels. Okay, so again, these are the brown ones that do not have the little score marks on them. So let's just get these glued on now. As I've mentioned numerous times in my past videos, I really, whenever possible, like to work flat so I can use my table and be more accurate and not warp the paper. Okay, so we're just going to pop that right into place just like that. And we'll do the same thing with this one here. And we'll just get this out of the way. Okay. Now what I would suggest doing is kind of organizing all your pieces by color. And then also, well, actually, you know what I did? I kind of organized them by section. Okay. But you can organize by color so that when you're working with me, you can pull the necessary colors for that section and just make life a lot easier. Okay, and now what I want to go ahead and do, and this is going to make constructing the rest of this project that much easier. I'm going to glue this on. Okay, and we want to just make sure that it's nice and flush up here. Okay. And you are going to notice that there's maybe just a thickness of paper of white showing through on the inside here, and that is totally by design. All we need to do is make sure that we have it lined up here on the roof part. Okay, so let's do that. And what we want to do is, well, I'm just going to go ahead and get our glue on this piece and get this glued into place. So we've got quite a bit of surface area here, so we want to try to be efficient but not sloppy. Okay, get our glue on as much of the surface as we can. If we have little areas that maybe are starting to dry and are pulling apart, we can always fix that later. It's not a problem. Okay, but let's get that in place. Okay, and try to make sure it's nice and centered. There we go. Lay that down flat and just press down. Try to make sure that that is nice and straight. Now you'll notice again, I mentioned that there's going to be a little bit of a white, tiniest little white border on the inside there. So just make sure that that looks equal on both sides. Okay, so there's that piece, nice and sturdy. Okay, we can move that out of the way, and we'll grab this guy here and do the same thing. Okay, so let's flip her over, and let's get our glue on here. And again, if we have any little areas that maybe are not sitting nice and flush, you can always go back in and kind of clean it up. But so far, so good. Again, I'm just kind of using my fingers here up at the top to make sure that that is nice and aligned up there. And then naturally, we've got that little border that gets created here on the inside. And of course, there's a border on the outside and the bottom, but there's the tiniest sliver of a border right there on the inside here as well. Okay, so there we go. That is what that should look like. All right. Good, so let's put that off to the side. I'm gonna let that dry nice and flat. And we'll go ahead and we'll just start with some simple things. Just get them out of the way, and I'll show you how these things go together. Okay, so these are the little windows on the front of our house. Now you're gonna wanna find the little snow roof piece that looks like this. There's gonna be two of them. Okay, one for each window, and the, let me show it to you this way. The little snowdrifts here, you can see they're kind of mirrored. You want the snowdrifts to have the longer little icicle sections in the center, okay, the center of the house. So I'll put that over. These two pieces are exactly the same, so you can, doesn't matter which one goes where. And these two pieces are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter where they go. We've got our vellum pieces, so we want one for each side. And then we have the actual window, these little red pieces, one for each side. And then we've got this little piece of candy. There's one for each one, and that makes up the, I forget what it's called. And then there's one more little piece here for the center of our little piece of candy. Okay, so each window contains the same items. The only difference is that we've got, we've got a snowdrift on one side that's a little bit bigger, and that's supposed to be in the center of the house. So ultimately, these two windows are gonna be side by side. You want this one facing towards the center. All right, so what we're gonna do, we'll do as much as we can here, and we'll start with getting our vellum in place. So you wanna find both pieces of vellum that are shaped like this, just big enough for our little window here. Okay, so as I mentioned, you'll want to find the little vellum pieces that are roughly the shape of and size of the little opening on this little window. And we're gonna get that glued into place. And just need a few little dots going around the perimeter. Don't overdo it. You don't want that glue smearing into the opening. There we go, just like that. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll put together just a few of the items that are gonna accent this little window. And we'll leave the rest for later once we actually have it installed. We're like a little North Pole construction crew today. Okay, so these two pieces we're gonna leave alone. We'll worry about those later, but we are going to put this little piece on here, as well as our little candy accent as well. Okay, so, well, as you can see here, I'm going to err on the side of caution and not put glue on the inner portion of this window. I'm just going to focus on the perimeter. Okay, just go very sparse on the glue. You don't need a lot. I actually had a call from a dreamer today about having issues with the paper warping when the glue was being applied, and I told her that chances are it's probably either too much glue or it's just maybe the paper is just not up to snuff. Okay, so that's going to go over just like that, and then we're going to glue this piece, which we have cut out of it's like a pink glitter, pretty thick. And again, I'm just going to go easy on the glue here. Just dot the glue, real simple. And these are symmetrical pieces, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. Okay, so we're going to glue that on just like that. And then we've got the little accent piece. Okay, now keep in mind here that on your left window, this little accent piece, it kind of curves in on one side. That little curve is going to be pointing towards the center. Ultimately, it's not a huge deal, but if you want to make it the way we have it, just letting you know how it needs to go. And that's going to go right in the center, just like that. Okay, pardon my head for a second. I want to make sure it's nice and centered. There we go. Okay, we'll let that set for a second while we do the same thing to the other side. And we are actually going to assemble the window, but we're just not going to put the roof on it. We'll do that later on. Okay, so get your glue around mostly the perimeter and on this little candy section. I would leave the center alone so we don't get any glue shooting all over our vellum. Okay, just pop that right into place. Make sure that it's nice and level. And that looks pretty good. All right, and the same thing here. We'll throw a little piece of candy on there with a little accent, and then we'll go back to the first one, since the little piece of candy is probably nice and dry by now, and we'll start assembling the actual window. I have to flip that over. And just get that nice and centered. Okay. And then grab our little accent piece. Just a couple dots of glue on that. Should be plenty. And pop that right in the center. Pardon my head. There we go. And there we go. Okay. All right, so we'll put that off to the side. We'll grab this one here. Okay. And the windows are going to look like this. Okay. And these tabs that you see here, okay, these tabs are all going to be used to glue and actually hold this in place. So we don't need to do anything with these tabs, but we do want to grab, well, you know what, let's glue this one first, this large tab up here. Grab your glue and apply it to the large tab here. Get it out to the very edge and spread that out nice and thin if you want. I always do that. Okay, and then tuck that in right behind the other side and make sure that you get that nice and lined up. And just press that in place. Make sure that tab is making good contact. And there we go. Doesn't have to be perfect because remember, we've got 2 layers that are going over this, but do your best to make sure that you have it in place, okay? And then again, these tabs, we're going to fold them out. Only thing left to do is there's a tiny little tab here. You can see it there. We're going to get our glue on that. Can do it out here so that's easier. Spread that glue out and then tuck that in, and we're going to push that tab up into right behind this section here. Okay, and just press and hold that for a moment. And again, this piece here, that's going to be sticking out. We're going to use that to hold this in place ultimately. Okay, so we're going to flip this over, go over to the other small little tab here. We'll get our glue on that. I'm just pulling it out completely the opposite direction just so it's easier to apply the glue. Okay, and flip that back in and tuck that back in. Bring that tab up and right behind this section here. Just make sure that that lines up with that little score mark there, okay? we'll do this one more time just so that make sure you get it right. And there we go. Okay, so it's gonna come out. And we're gonna use these tabs to keep it in place. So that one's done. We'll just kind of keep all these pieces together. Okay, and again, we're gonna put that on later, and then it's gonna have the nice little accent on it. That's gonna look really cute. So we'll move that out of the way for now, and let's put this one together just so that we become pros at assembling gingerbread house windows. We'll get our glue on the large tab here, maybe a little extra right out to the edge. And I'm going to paint that glue out to the very edge. We'll tuck that in. That tab's gonna go behind the other side. And make sure you're getting good contact on everything. There we go. Just like that. Beautiful. All right, and again, these two tabs here, these two tiny little triangular ones, is what we're gonna glue next to the underside, the inside of the actual roof piece here. Okay, very little glue goes a long way. So again, we're gonna tuck that under and behind this piece. Just make sure that you line it up and give that a squeeze. All right, and the last one here. You can see that it's a little bit brighter because I moved it into the light. So you can kind of differentiate what's what. And again, we're going to tuck that in and behind this piece here. Get it lined up so that those lines are nice and straight together. And just give that a press. And there we go. And you can flare these tabs out so that you get them ready for their final position, their final destination. There we go. All right, and again, just keep the roof and the little snow accent together with it, and we can put this off to the side and move on to the next thing. Okay, so let's do something a little simpler. Let's change it up, and let's get our little candy cane urn accents assembled. We'll just go real quick and easy and simple. Just keep it fun, okay? So we've got this piece here. We're gonna have two of those. And you've got two of the little swirly candy cane overlays. There's a couple little snowdrifts that are gonna go over that as well. And then the planters, okay? So let's get the planters in place. And we did this in it's almost like a satin green foil, but whatever you choose will look great. And get your glue on the back of that. And just kind of self-explanatory as far as this part goes. You just want to match it up with the bottom. Make sure that that's sitting accurately, as well as the little stem for our, I guess this is kind of like a little candy cane urn topiary sort of deal here. Okay, do the same thing on the next one. And get that in place. I just kind of like to get rid of all these little small pieces so that you have less stuff to worry about. It's easier to find these specific items, specific little pieces. We'll get those out of the way, and then we can concentrate on the bigger assembly. And this is a good way to kind of get your feet wet and get used to your glue bottle. Just kind of get ready for the main part of our show here. Okay, so you'll notice that there is a series of little score marks on the top part here, okay? And you want to kind of position that. They're almost like two little arrows, okay? And you want to just kind of figure out where to set those so that they match up. And ideally, you want a nice even border around the little candy cane up here. And you kind of, well, I mean, you could technically have it any way you want, but you can use the little guides there and just make sure that these little V shapes in between these two sections match up with those little V shapes as well. I hope I'm explaining that well. I think that made sense. But let's get our glue on there and just pop that right into place. Again, making sure that, I'm gonna lift this up so it's easier for me to see. Making sure that we've got a nice even border going all the way around these, and that looks good. Okay, so we'll grab our other one and get that one glued down. There we go. And again, just kind of looking at the, that looks about right, I think. There we go. That looks good. Yeah, so the way that we have it designed, we've got one of these sections here is always up at the top. Okay, so anyway, either way is going to be fine, however you assemble it. Okay, so now we've got the little snowdrifts here, and these are only going to fit, they're kind of mirrored, so they'll only fit one way. Just before you put glue on it, just kind of make sure that it in fact is the right one. You can see how that one sits properly, where if we took this one, it wouldn't work. Okay, so just make sure you grab the right one, and I'll just make everything look nice. So you always want to kind of test things before you put them together. And remember, this is my first time putting this together too. And before I actually sit down and make the video, I do a dry run. I kind of lay all the pieces out, see what goes where based on the prototype. And then I just kind of go with it and figure it out. And it always works out because of the engineering that my team does. Everything just makes sense once you kind of just look at it from a big picture standpoint. Okay, and then of course this one is going to go onto the other planter. And eventually we're going to take and use some foam squares to kind of pull this off of the actual structure and give it a little bit of life and dimension. Okay, so there's our little planters. Nothing left to do with these except put them off to the side and start moving on to the next thing. Okay, so still kind of keeping with simple things here. We're gonna find our little window panel. Now you'll notice that there's 3 of these. 2 of them are the same height. Okay, this one, as you can see, if we kind of put it right there, you notice that this one's a little bit taller. These go on the sides of the house. The shortest one of the 3 is going to go on the back of the house. This is the back panel that has a flap that's going to allow us to open it up so that we can either put something in it, whether it be a gift or whatever, or in our case, add our little LED lights. Okay, so what we want to do is, well, we want to put our vellum in place first. Now, depending on how you want to do it, I think that since this is going to be opened, you're going to be opening and closing it, it may be a good idea just to sandwich the vellum here so that it's hidden, okay? So it looks nicer when you open it. The other windows, you're not really going to see them too much. That's why I did it on the inside. But we can actually put the vellum right onto this piece here. And let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to just going to put a little bit of glue around the perimeter of this window. And I'm going to flatten some of that out. I went a little overboard. And we're going to pop that right into place, just like so. Okay, just like that. Okay, and then we've got this piece here, and that is going to get glued on just like so. You want to have a nice even border going all the way around this piece. So let's get our glue on this piece here. And we'll get this into place. And just try to get that glue out to the very edges where possible. If you don't get it all the way out there and you see a little piece that's peeling back, we can always go back and fix that. Okay, again, just make sure that you got it nice and centered so that there's a nice even border going all the way around, and just press that into place. There we go. Just like that. Okay, and you can see how that does look a little bit better than having the vellum just sitting there. Okay, And we're going to put this little piece on next to cover up, well, to kind of give it some interest actually, because there's really nothing there but vellum and a cutout. Okay, so get your glue on this piece here. And just match it up with the little Y that's already there. Use that as your visual cue for placement. Just like so. There we go. And that looks great. And then finally, we've got our little snowdrift. You want to make sure you grab the right one. The other windows also have a snowdrift. Just kind of place it down onto this window and just make sure that it gels with the rest of the shape, especially around here, and also this little drift here on the left pane of the window. Okay, so let's get our glue on our little snowdrift and just pop that right into place. You can use your little icicles here as a guide for the bottom section, and then these little areas here for the left and right. Okay, so there's our little opening. And then I've got this piece here that's going to go on just like this. Okay, and what we want to do, this piece here is actually going to be flush at the top. Okay, so it's flush at the top. This is the bottom. This is the top. We want it flush at the top, but we want an even border around the rest of it. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like here in a second once it's all done. Let's get our glue on here and just make sure that we're getting our glue out to the edge as often as possible. Actually, both the inside and the outside would be preferable. We don't want any of those sections peeling back. Okay, and if it doesn't all work out, we can always fix it. So again, flush at the top and kind of use that little notch as a guide. And quickly get it lined up. And there we go. Okay, so you can see how it's flush here at the top, border around the rest of the perimeter. That's what we want. And that was a big piece, and it's been dry in Chicago. So I've got a little area there that just is not sitting as flat as I'd like it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper and I'm going to rip off just a little bit of it like that. And I'm going to throw a little bit of glue right on the very edge of it. And these little areas here that I didn't get enough glue on, I can literally tuck that little scrap under there, wipe off any excess, and then just press down and make sure that that sits nicely. Here you can see the same problem on this side. Just didn't get enough glue on there. And there's so many different factors that play into that. Technique, type of paper, how dry the paper is, how quickly it absorbs the glue, your humidity. I noticed that things change as the seasons change a little bit, especially around here. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right, and that's going to get glued onto the structure once everything's said and done. But we can take this and put it off to the side. That one's ready to go. And now we're going to put together the sides of our actual structure. Okay, and don't get confused. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do here in just a second. Oops, dropped a piece. Okay, so our house has two little sections that pop out on the side. Okay, and each section has one of these windows. Now let me actually move this over. Let me flip this over here. Okay, so let me move these out of the way. And I just want you to piece all the things and get them together and organize them the same way that I'm doing it right now. See the little windows here? Position them just like this. You want this piece. These pieces are pretty much identical with the exception of where the window is placed. So you want to put this one with the window on this section on the left, this one here on the right. Just do it how I have it, okay? And then you're going to want to find, let's see, you're going to want to find these pieces here, that go with that, and the one that goes with that. Okay, and then find that one here, and find this one here. You can see how they kind of go with the shape there. Okay, and then each one is going to have this little candy cane center. Right, those are pretty much identical, so I don't need to worry about that too much. Okay, and then each one's going to have the little window. So find the window. Oh, and of course, the vellum for the window. Okay, and each one is going to have vellum for the center window. And each one is going to have this little candy cane wooden center for the center window. So find one of those for each one. And also, one other thing too, each of these is going to have this little piece that is essentially just a cutout here. So find that one, and then also find this one. Okay. And then you're going to want to find a little snowdrift for this window. Find the snowdrift for this window. Okay. And then each of these is going to have a piece like this. This is for the center of the roof. That's for the center of the roof. Then each one is going to have a snowdrift for the center of the roof, another snowdrift for the center of the roof. And then you need to find two of these for each one. Okay, they're going to go opposite directions, and they're going to fit onto right here, these little sections here. And then you're going to want to find these snowdrifts that correspond to those. You can see how it angles, just work off the angle. Okay, same thing with this one here, and this one here, and the snowdrift, and the other snowdrift. Okay, so left side, right side, same thing, just kind of flip-flopped as far as where the window is. Nothing else is really different. So I'm going to show you how to put together both of them, but I wanted to make sure that you got all these pieces laid out and figured out so that there's no confusion as to what goes where. I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to start with panels and vellum, as we always do. So I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to put my two vellum pieces in place, one for the center and one for the little window on the side. So let's get going on that. And this process is going to be exactly the same for the other window, with the exception of it just being kind of mirrored. Okay. All right, so just make sure that when you place your vellum, that you have it placed correctly so that it covers all of the little cutout there. You don't want a little bit of it not being covered up. And my glue is drying out really quick too. Okay, and we'll do the circle. Oops. If you get a little bit too much glue on any area, just kind of dab it with your finger. That way you don't risk smearing it. And just pop that in place. It's larger than it needs to be, and that's just to eliminate any potential human error. Okay, so that looks good. Flatten this out so we can get our panels on here. It'll just make life easier for us. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, so let's get our panel in place. Let's start with the center one. Now this piece here, it's not a symmetrical piece, so we got to be careful when we apply this. What we're going to do is when we apply this, there's going to be an even border going around the sides and the bottom, but not the top. The top is actually going to be flush with pretty much just below that little score mark there, that first score mark. Now, so if you align it, and you notice that you're seeing a little bit of the brown there showing through from this piece, you want to flip it around. Flip it around, bring it back up to that score mark, make sure it's centered, and you shouldn't see any of the brown coming through. That's how you know that you have it in the correct orientation. Okay, so once you have it in the correct orientation, let's go ahead and get it glued down. And it might be helpful for me to get a humidifier in here. If you guys are having issues with your glue drying out really quick, that might help you as well. Because I know the relative humidity out there in the world has been probably in the, well, I know in my house right now, it's in the low or upper 30s, I should say. which is not much. And that'll actually help keep you healthier too. So that might be a good idea. Okay, so we've got that panel in place. Okay, so we just got this one in place. Now this one here, what we're gonna do is, you'll notice at almost the bottom here, there's two little indicators, and they may seem like they should be straight lines, but they're not. They're actually kind of shaped to hug the little scalloped areas down here. And when we apply this, we want to make sure that we have it so that there's a nice border around here, but we want to get it almost as close to the very edge as we can without going over, okay? And it's okay if you leave a little bit of a little hairline border right there, so it's not encroaching over. You want it either right up to it or slightly in, just a tad, so it's not going past this little area here where the score marks are. So I'll try to butt it up right up to those little score marks without going over. Okay, let's just get that in place, and then we'll just move on to getting our little window portions in place with the Snowdrift and the actual window itself. Okay, so again, get it lined up as close as you can to that border without going over. Kind of nudge it a little bit if you need to, and just get that nice and flat. Perfect. Okay, and then this one here, if I can find it, there it is. It has this little piece here now this piece here, this is going to go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, that's going to be flush with the bottom so that there's that little gap there. Okay, so let's get that glued in place. There we go. Perfect. And again, get that down up to just about butting up to that little score mark. You don't want it to go past the boundary of that little score mark, okay? Just use that as your guide. Okay, that looks good. Perfect. All right, so now that we've got that in place, we can go ahead and put our little window in place. So get your glue on your window, and I think I'm gonna probably not worry too much about the center, maybe just a little bit, just like that. And just match that up with the little Y shape that's in the center of your window as far as positioning goes. There we go. That looks good. Okay. And then we can glue our little Snowdrift on as well. You can see how slowly but surely all of these little pieces are going away, they're finding their place, and then we'll just be left with the major components, which we can then just put together. Okay, so that's that, and then we're going to put our other panel in place here. Now this panel is going to go all the way down to the bottom, okay, and it's also going to be up pretty much flush, just like this side, okay, to the side and flush at the bottom, and that is going to naturally leave a nice little border around the inside. Okay, so that one's pretty simple. Do your best with your alignment. There we go. Again, I would focus on the bottom corner there and getting this corner piece right in there. Like I said, it's okay if you leave like a little hairline border around the inside there near the tabs. That's totally fine. Just make sure that it's pretty flush with the bottom, and we'll call it a success. Okay, there we go. And then last but not least, before we actually assemble this, you can find the little wooden, we'll call it wood, little wooden accent piece for our little candy cane window, and we'll get that glued into place. Now, one thing you want to do though is when you pick it up to glue it, just kind of remember where it is as far as orientation. so that it's easier to place. You don't have to sit there and rotate it and potentially smear glue all over the place as you're trying to get it placed into place. Okay. Kind of just like what I did. There we go. And just make sure that lines up nicely and pop that right into place. Okay. All right, so that side is pretty much done. And now what we're going to do, we're going to move these tabs out of the way. And we're going to assemble this thing and kind of just make it dimensional. Okay. And that's going to require us to simply take these tabs and glue them to the inside of this little piece here. Okay. So I'm going to begin with one side. I want to try to do both sides at the same time. And I'm going to get my glue on the tiny little tab here, and then I'm going to go up to the second one as well. And I'm going to just kind of spread that nice and thin. And this piece is angular, it's not smooth. So you can kind of use that as your guide to make sure that you've got it lined up correctly with this actual piece here. And give that a little bit of a nudge if you need to. Just make sure that it's lining up correctly, just like that. Okay, and we can literally take this piece and fold it out and get our glue. I'm just going to do the next 3 tabs here, no big deal. A little bit of glue. And I'm just going to dab that, thin it out, and also work it out to the edges. And then we can tuck that in and take a look up and close, make sure that it's lining up with the natural curve there. It's actually a jagged curve, again, so you can use that as a guide to make sure that you've got it aligned correctly. And I do, and that looks good. Okay, so there we have that, and then we just have the other side here. Now, this time, I'm not going to have the luxury of being able to pop this out. So, what we could probably do, though, is probably get all these tabs in place rather quickly, because the other side has already anchored it for us. It already knows the shape it needs to take. We just need to help it get there. Okay, so close that up and just very quickly, and that's why when you thin the glue out like that and make it a little tacky, it makes this process a lot easier and things just kind of grip and hold much faster. And then you don't get as much glue shooting all over the place. And bam, there you go. And that is nice and assembled for us now. Okay, so there is one side. This is going to be the left side of our gingerbread house. And these little tabs here, we're going to use these to kind of hold everything in place ultimately. Okay. All right, now the rest of these pieces, the sides and the actual roof, we're going to put this on after everything is assembled. So we can put this off to the side, and then we're going to go over to the right side of our little house, and we're going to do the same thing to this guy here, and I will walk you through that just to make sure we get everything done correctly. We're going to flip this over, and we're going to put our vellum in place first. Okay, so there's our little circle. So find your little circular vellum piece, and let's get that glued into place. Like that. Get it nice and centered if you can. I did better that time. Still kind of missed a little bit, but it doesn't matter. That's all that matters, is that end result. Okay, and right around the window, just like that. And get that nice and centered. There we go. Okay, so we have that in place. And now remember again, with the center panel, you want to make sure that the top of it is flush with that first little scoreline section. And I can see here that I'm seeing a little bit of the brown showing through here. That means I need to flip it over. Okay, and that looks dead on. So we'll go ahead and get our glue on this one. Just like that. And again, make sure that you get it butting up to the little score marks there and that it's also centered. And press that into place. There we go. Perfect. All right, so grab the panel for the window here. Now remember, we have a little bit, 2 indicators down here to help you with the vertical placement of this. But again, we want to make sure that we have it kind of butting up to that score mark, not going over, just right up next to it, okay? And that we have it at the appropriate height here as well, based on those little indicators. Okay, so let's get our glue on this piece here. Careful, this one's got the little scallops at the bottom, so get your glue into the right spot for those. And boy, that glue is drying quick. Okay, I'm using the little indicators to help me align it vertically, and then I'm looking at the little score marks to make sure that I'm not encroaching over them, but rather getting right up next to them, just kind of butting up against them. I've got a bit of a hairline border there, a nice even border around the rest of it, and that looks good. And then we'll find this little tiny piece that's going to go right there. Remember, this one is going to be flush with the very bottom. Okay. There we go. Right down to the very bottom. Don't go over the little score mark, but right next to it. Just like that. There we go. Okay, that looks perfect. And then we can, well, you know what, let's do it in the same order we did it before. Let's get our window in place. And I think my glue bottle is going to need a cleaning here. There we go. And focus on the little Y there in the center of the window. Kind of lock in on that. Make sure that that's lined up, and the rest of it should just fall into place like so. Okay, and then we've got, kind of jumping around here, but I'm sure a lot of you do the same thing. Like whatever's handy, just grab it and glue it and rock it. Okay, and I'm going to clean this glue bottle out because it is getting bad. And just pop that right into place. There we go. Okay, and then we have our little Snowdrift for the window, so let's get that in place. My glue bottle sounds like it has a upper respiratory infection or something. I might need to get the antibiotics out here. Okay, and just pop that right into where it belongs naturally. You can see the little shape that's already there for you. Here we go. Okay, and that just leaves this panel here. And again, when we put this one down, it may help to fold these tabs in so that when you're bringing this in, you can kind of align it right with this very corner right here where my thumb is. And again, you can leave a little bit of a hairline border right along these edges, and then you'll be in good shape. All right, and just clean my glue bottle out. Now, of course, it's flowing like Niagara Falls. So I gotta kind of adjust my squeeze. so that my paper doesn't start warping. And that's fine. That's just like any other tool. I think for any other artist and any other trade, you just have to know your tool and make the best out of it. Now you can see how I added that glue and it's kind of warping the paper, it's bending it. So that's a great illustration of what moisture in the glue can do to your paper if you use too much glue. So you always want to go easy on the glue. And it also helps to have nice thick cardstock, 80 pound. And this AC cardstock with all its little fibers really helps kind of capture that moisture. So that's always a good thing. All right, and now all that's left to do is put this guy together. So just like we did the first time, you can just take and I'm going to just start with the first two tabs here at the bottom. And you can see that glue's coming out. Sometimes I kind of like a clogged bottle of glue because it's almost like you have to squeeze harder, but you get less glue, and sometimes it's just a little more accurate. That's why those fine tip nozzles are really good, but sometimes when you get those things clogged up, that's just a headache, and I don't like to deal with that. Okay, so just like we did with the last piece for the left side of the house, just want to get that aligned. And remember, this isn't smooth here. You can actually, if you look closely, you will see that they are angled, which is going to make it a lot easier to line these up with the side here. Okay, I'm just going to hit that with my finger, thin that out, make it a little tacky, and we'll just tuck that right back in and get that nice and aligned with this piece here, up here. And there we go, and there we go. Okay, now looks good. And then to the other side. Now remember, we did all these in one fell swoop, which we're gonna do again. It's okay if you throw a little extra glue on here since we're doing 5. And then just kind of take it with your finger, dab it, get it right out to that very edge. Get it nice and tacky, and then fold that in, get it nice and aligned. One quick squeeze, this should be all you need to get that to hold once it's that tacky. There we go, and that looks nice and aligned. And then you can always put it flat down on your surface and push down from the inside to really let that set. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have side number 2 all done. Get these tabs into position. These are going to get glued to the inside of our main structure. And remember, the center of the roof, the 2 sides, and the 3 snowdrifts, we're going to leave those for later. Okay, so you can put this off to the side. And now we're going to work on the little center part of the house that kind of protrudes out. And well, for now, this little candy cane part, we're going to put that on once everything's kind of together. So with that said, I can flip this over and let's get our inside all assembled here with our vellum, and then we can do our little door. Okay, so go easy on the glue here, and you can see how I really need to adjust to cleaning out my glue bottle. Just like that. Actually, I think we need to go out here more. Okay, and if there's any little areas where you've got way too much glue, just hit it with your finger a bit to prevent any leakage or any of it kind of shooting out, and get that nice and aligned, just like that. I was off a little bit. You can see how much I was off to the left, but that's why we kind of make them bigger so that you can still get it right even though you're off a little bit. Okay, now we can flip this over and we're going to get our door in place. Okay, and you can see where the door is going to go. Now you'll also notice that there are a series of little score marks here. That's for the candy cane part of this. We'll worry about that later, but as we put our door in place, we can use those guides to help us center the door more accurately. And this door is going to be flush with the bottom of this piece. So the bottom of the door needs to be flush with the bottom of this piece when we put it into place. So I'll show you what I mean here. Okay, so you see those two little guides there. Get that centered between those two guides as accurately as you can, and make sure that bottom of that door is nice and flush with the bottom of this piece. Okay, there we go. Like so. There we go. And we'll put this piece into place. Just get our glue all the way around, work that perimeter. I am definitely going to have to use my finger to kind of dab that glue and thin it out a bit because I don't want it shooting all over the place. And pop that right into place. There we go. And then we've got this piece here that's going to go right there. And we can just put glue on this entire piece for that. Just like that. Okay. There we go. And finally, we do have a little, in this case, we did it in a pink glitter, just a little heart. And that heart is going to go right onto the vellum window. I'm just going to center that as accurately as we can. Kind of use the point right there to align with the point on the heart. And then just make sure that that is nice and centered and vertical. And there we go. Hold that in place for just a moment and let that set. There we go. Okay. And these tabs, these are all structural tabs that we're going to use to kind of join everything together. But in the meantime, we can glue these sections here to the front of the door. I'm not going to do anything with these tabs just yet. But what we want to do first is, you can see this little tab here. I'm going to put glue on that, and we're going to join it to the piece on the other side. Okay, so grab that other side and get it right in place. Make sure you have it nice and aligned. And it kind of will help to flatten it out a little bit, just to kind of create the feel of it being round. Kind of like I'm doing right now, I'm just kind of pushing down on it. Okay. And now we just need to simply take and glue these little teeth into position. Okay. Okay, so now that we've got this middle piece connected, what I'm going to do to kind of glue this on, just kind of looking at it and analyzing it, and I think the best thing to do is actually to start in the center and get the center anchored and in position, and then the rest of it will just kind of fall into place automatically. All we have to do is just glue it. So I'm going to peel this back, and I'm actually going to try to get glue on, well, maybe not just the middle two, but maybe two, maybe three more. Okay, and then just get that glue out to the very edge. Okay, and get that center one in position. Might have to push it down ever so slightly. So use one finger in the back, one finger in the front. Get that nice and anchored, and then move on over to the tabs that we added glue to the left and to the right, and just push those into place. Just use very little glue. Okay, now we have to work from the inside, since we can't really pull this away. So, well, you know what? Actually, what we can do, if you want to use a scratch piece of paper and just throw a little bit of glue on it, you can actually just paint some glue in between the remaining parts here. Just spread that glue up and down one side, just like that. Wipe off any excess, and then just get those tabs into place. push from the front, and then get your finger inside and push from the inside as well. And just make sure everything's making good contact. You can actually put it down on your surface at this point. Once you're sure that everything's lined up, you can certainly just push from the inside, and there you go. And that little area there looks like it could use a little more glue. So I'm just gonna throw a little bit more on this scrap piece of paper and just pop it right in between the two layers there. Flip it over and just push down from the inside so that everything makes good contact and everything's nice and flush. Okay. There we go, that looks great. And then we can move on over to the other side, do the same thing. Now, if you don't want to use this method, you can certainly just come over here and then either with your fingers or with a dowel, lift up the tabs so you can get some glue under it. But you know what? I think that's going to be kind of messy if you do it that way. So you're better off just using this method here. Just get a little glue on there. Make sure it's nice and thin. You don't want it all gloppy. And just pop it right in between the face and the tabs. Just paint that glue on like that. There we go. Wipe off the excess and just squeeze that into place. Make sure it's nice and aligned. Just hold it there for a moment, and then you can put that down on your surface and press down from the inside to make that final connection. And there we go. Got a perfect little extruded front door section that's ready to go. And again, I don't want to put this on just yet, but we can certainly glue this to this layer just to have it ready. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get our glue on this candy cane piece, and we're going to glue it onto our white section here. And a lot of little details here, but I can take my time with this because this is glitter and this back is not very porous, so it's not absorbing the glue as quickly as my AC cardstock would. So I can really take my time and get into all these little nooks and crannies here, and especially the little arch here. Nice and thin amounts of glue. Less is more. Okay, so take that, and I'm just going to join these two together. Just pop it right on top. Make sure everything lines up nicely. Check the bottom here. Make sure that that's nice and flush, and it's not. There we go. There we go, and there we go. And if it doesn't stick, which it will, because it's, like I said, it's glitter. The back of it is almost like a plastic material. That glue does not soak in very quickly, so we got plenty of time. But if you are using cardstock and it didn't stick the first time, just grab your scrap piece of paper, stick it in between the two layers, paint a little extra glue on there, and before you know it, you'll have your piece ready. So ultimately, once we get this affixed to the actual front of the main structure, we're going to pop that on there as a nice little accent. You can see how nice that looks. Okay, so almost time to start putting together the main structure here, but we do have a few more little panels to put into place, and we've got some here. Now these two pieces, these are going to get glued onto this structure. It's got part of the roof attached to it. This is the front, okay? And just like we did before, what we're going to do is we're going to try to align this up to, and not over, but pretty much flush with where that fold is, okay? And we definitely want it pretty much up against the inside here. There might be a little bit of a white border, like a tiny little bit still sticking out there, and that is totally fine. But let's get that into place, because that's just going to be easier now rather than doing it later. Okay. And then we'll do the other side. And then I think it'll be time to start putting the structure together. Okay, so remember, align it with almost flush with the score marks there. Just fold it and make sure that it's not going over, but that it's butting up right against it, and you should have a nice even border here. And we do. And this is going to make it a lot easier when we start putting the structure together too, because things won't be as flimsy. That's always very helpful. Okay, so moving right along here. Just like that. Same thing with this one. Just make sure that it's butting up to the top there, as close as you can go without going over that scored area. There we go. Okay, there we go. And it looks very symmetrical. I think it did a pretty good job. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's get this assembled. Now, the main structural pieces are here. Are they? Missing one, I think. Oh, no, I'm not. All right, so remember these pieces here that we put the panels on? We're gonna need these pieces. If you take a look at the bottom on the tabs here, on this section, you'll notice that there's a Roman numeral 1 here, okay? On one of these, there's a Roman numeral 2, so two lines going up and down. So that's 2. This piece has a 3 right here. And then this piece has a 4, but the 4 is in the shape of a square. I have this on a notepad. We've gone over this before. And pardon the, let me just cut this off. Okay, so you can see here, the 4 is going to be 4 lines, but in the shape of a square or a circle, we can call it. But that's Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3. Our 4 is like this. And that's what this piece here has right there. It has that little our version of the 4. Okay, so that's going to go here. Now we just need to simply join all these pieces together. So here's 1, 2 is going to go next to it, which means that we're going to be connecting this long tab here to this section here. Okay, we want to make sure that we get that as accurate as possible. So we'll go ahead and apply our glue to this long tab here, and we're going to work that glue nice and thin, get it out to the edge so that we don't make a mess and that everything holds nice and tight, just like that. And we can certainly take advantage of our flat table, get that nice and accurately lined up. Okay, there we go. Now take a look at these score marks here for these tabs. These score marks should be kind of continuous. That's how you know you've got them lined up. And then these two should be butting up nicely. That's pretty good. Okay, so there we've got piece 1 and 2 connected. Now we need piece number 3. Number 3, this is the bottom where the actual Roman numeral is. Okay, so let's get our glue on this tab here. And let's work that glue out again to the bottom. Nice and flush, nice and thin amount of glue. You don't want anything warping or spraying out anywhere. There we go. Let's use our table to help us get a good alignment on this. This is going to start getting kind of long, so make sure you got plenty of room on your desk. Okay, and you can use that bottom tab there and that bottom line to make sure that you've got everything lined up as precisely as you can. That looks pretty good to me. Fold that over onto itself and press down. Okay, let's take a look at my work here. Okay, yeah, looks good. Just be patient, make sure everything sets nicely. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to fudge up our gingerbread house. Okay. All right, and then piece number 4. This is 3, this is 4, and that's going to connect to this large tab here. Okay, so let's get our glue on this tab here. Again, go easy with the glue. And I'm going to spread that glue out to the edge. This glue is really drying out. I might need more, especially along the edge there. Okay, and move that out of the way and get that as aligned as we can, just like that. There we go. Fold that over onto itself and just press down nicely. That's pretty good. There's always going to be a bit of a margin of error because we're only human, and it's okay. Now, while this is flat, we can put this piece on. It'll just be a lot easier to do this now. Okay, and you can see there's already a hole there. That's going to be our, yeah, that's right. Okay, so all we want to do is we just want to put glue on the perimeter here. You don't want to put any glue on the actual door. That's not going to help our cause. That's actually going to cause problems. So just stick to the perimeter and let's get that glue out to the edge as well. We want that to be a nice clean seam all the way around. Okay, and just spread that glue out to the perimeter. Gotta work kind of quick, especially if you're in a dry climate like I am right now, where the glue is just drying out. You can always go in and fix things, remember, it's never too late. Just get that lined up nicely. Okay, and work your fingers around those perimeters. Make sure that is nice and tight and connected nicely. Yep, that's a good one. And if you do have, let's see, peekaboo, right through. If you do have any areas, well, I did a good job. Mine's sitting just fine. If you have any areas that are kind of peeking out or lifting up, you can always just take your scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue in between those layers, and just fix it. Give it a little extra love in those areas that need it, and you'll be in good shape. Okay, so now we can go ahead and close this up. Just fold it over like that. Now we've got this tab here. Okay, we got to put glue on this tab. And we're going to close this up and make it all one continuous box. Work that glue out to the edge. There we go. And technically, because it's symmetrical, I should be able to just do this flat. So leave that nice and flat and take this end and just pop it right on top of that tab that we just put glue on. Just like that. And press and hold that. You can kind of fold it over onto this side now and just really press that down and make sure that everything is making good contact. Let's take a look here. That looks nice. There we go. So you see what's starting to happen here. Okay, we got a structure. Everything is looking nice, very nice. Okay, so next step is to get our glue onto our roof and get the roof glued on to these side structures here. All right, so I'm gonna move this out of the way so there's no confusion here. And you'll notice that this roof piece has 2 tabs, one on each side. We're gonna put glue on one at a time and just glue it to this piece here. Okay, so get your glue onto the tab. And I am going to spread that glue out to the edge. Get a little glue up there into the very corner, tuck it in like that, and just line it up nicely. Get it as lined up as you possibly can. Don't tuck it in too much. You want it to be flush and not inside of this area. You want it to be flush here. You don't want to push it in too far. And you can actually put this down on your surface and just press down from the inside. And there we go. Okay. And then you can go ahead and get glue onto the other tab here. Careful if you're doing this like I am that you don't get glue onto the brown section. Okay, there we go. So we can tuck that in behind this brown piece and get that in place. You can flip this down onto your surface and press down right on your table. That way you don't warp or bend anything. There we go. Look at that. Okay, so you probably guessed it. We're going to do the same thing with this side of the roof. We're going to glue these tabs in first, and then from the inside, we're going to glue this tab to the top of the peak of the roof, just for stability. Okay, so let's get our glue onto, let me clean this off. Get our glue onto these tabs here. So you can see this tab here. And then it might actually be helpful at this point just to get glue on the other side as well. And spread that out nice and thin on both sides. This side is starting to set already. So I'm going to add some extra glue there. There we go. Wipe off any excess and just tuck it in. Make sure those tabs are inside. Line it up. Make sure it's nice and lined up, and then just push that tab in from the inside. There we go. And then other side as well. Get that nice and lined up. Make sure that this giant tab here is also inside. There we go. Because that needs to get glued to the inside. There we go. That looks good. I'm going to flip this over and push down on this tab from the inside. And let's check our work. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And you know what? Honestly, even if it's not completely perfect, it's going to be covered up by additional roof pieces. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Okay, so now you've got this long tab in here that we're going to need to glue into place. And you can certainly, I don't know if you can see it, here's the tab right here, that long tab. You can use your glue and put it on from the inside like this, but I think that it's going to be safer and easier actually if we just use a scrap piece of paper, throw some glue on it, and just paint that with glue all the way down. Just like that. And then we can put that down on our surface. Make sure that it's lined up here. And just press down from the inside. Just like that. So all I did was, instead of trying to get my glue nozzle in there, I just kind of painted the glue into the spots that I needed it. And then I glued that tab right in there. Let me open this door up so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I need to tilt this for you so you can see the tab glued into place. But you can see it there. There's that tab. You can see the little shadow of the bottom of the tab. So that's glued into place, and that worked out beautifully actually. And that's perfect. And structurally, it's pretty solid now, which is going to make it a lot easier for us to put everything else in place. Okay. So that being said, the next thing we can do is we can put our sides on. Okay, so find your left side. This is the front of the house. This is the big entryway. And this is the left side of the house because it has the window. Now, I'll just show you so you don't get it mixed up. Actually, it wouldn't even, well, it could work this way, but you'll see that this is the front, this is where the main door is going to go, but you don't have a window here. So you want to flip it around. So this one's actually going to go over here. Okay, but we're going to start on the left side here. So just pop it in, pop it through. Okay, might be a little bit of resistance there, and that's fine. Oops. Get those tabs in there. Okay, so remember that, let me just show you real quick. These tabs here, see how there's 3 of them? Okay, those are going inside, and those are the tabs. We're going to glue those tabs to the inside walls of this piece, and that's how that's going to stay in there. So let me show you here. You see how we've got these tabs here? I'm going to start with the top tab and just kind of get that anchored in place, and the rest of this will just kind of fall into place for us. Okay, so you see how, let me show you, that's going to fold over onto the inside right here, onto the inside of this piece. Same with this tab here, that's going to fold over onto the inside, and that's going over onto the inside of this piece. So like I said, let's start with the center tab, because then that way we know it's nice and centered and nice and flush at the top, and then the rest of it should just fall in place. And I'm not overly concerned about being perfect with the glue here. Okay, so you see that tab there? I'm going to go ahead and apply glue to it, mostly on the outside. I'm not worried about painting that glue up to the very edge. I just want it to stick and hold. Okay, so you see how I got the glue on that tab, and I'm going to fold it over onto the inside of this wall while making sure that everything here looks nice and lined up. Okay, I know it's sticking out, and that's fine. We're just concerned about getting that top tab in place and making sure that this up here is nice and even with that section there. Okay, and you can technically just kind of do it like this, because all I'm doing is gluing this tab onto this right now, and then eventually we're going to fold these tabs in, bring them in, and then glue these tabs right here to the inside of this piece. Okay, so that was actually, I just kind of discovered that method just now. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so just get some glue on this tab. You don't need to spread it out, just like that. Okay, and then we're simply going to take it and fold it over onto the inside. And let's make sure that that is nice and flush. Yeah, that looks good. And just press that down into place. Good. Now, I'm going to put some glue on this tab. Just like that. And we're going to fold this over onto the inside of this section. Doesn't matter how you hold it. However you got to do it to get it to work is fine with me. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and these tabs can fold under. They're going to be part of, there we go, look at that. Okay, so we got one side on, and now I can put on the other side. And same deal here. So I found that the easiest way to do this is to just simply put some glue on this tab here, just like that, that's fine. And then stick that in there. Okay, and we're taking this tab and gluing it to the inside of this section here. Okay, so you see how I did that? I slid the tab back behind this wall. Whoops. Hold on a second. There we go. Just make sure it's centered. Make sure it's nice and flush. You can actually fold this over too, so you can get your hand in there better. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm just pressing that tab down onto the inside of this section. just like that. There we go. Okay, now we can take these two tabs, make sure we tuck them in so that we can slide that in. Let me show you again. See how we're doing this here? This is where the tabs are. We're sliding the tabs in, and then we're going to take and fold the tabs over onto the inside. Same with this one. This one's going to get, whoops, hold on. It's kind of flimsy, sorry. It shouldn't be this hard for you because you're not trying to demonstrate it on camera, so pardon my flimsiness here. But you can see here, there's that tab. I'm wiggling it, and that's going to go to the inside of this section here. So let me just do that real quick. Let me get my glue on here. Just like that. And again, there's that tab. It's going in and behind this section here. Okay, so just make sure that it's nice and flush. And I'm just pressing it up against the inside here. Hopefully, I'm illustrating that well enough that you'll understand it. Okay. There we go. So that one tab is in place now. You can see it there. And now I'm going to flip this tab in right there. And just flip this tab in so that I can apply my glue to it. It's a nice thin line of glue. Don't need a lot. Just like that. And then we're going to fold it over onto this section here. Okay, so we've got the sides, pretty much most of it constructed. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our little front door in. Okay, actually, you know what? Before we do that, just so it's easier to work on, let's get our windows in. Okay, so grab these two pieces here, and all we're going to do is pop these in, just like that. And I'm going to do my best to show you how to get these glued in there. Might be a little awkward, but essentially what we're doing is, you can see these tabs and how I had them flared out. We're going to put glue on all 5 of these tabs and just glue them to the inside of the structure surrounding this cutout. Okay, so in essence, you can just pretend that there's glue here, and we're going to pop that in there. But we're going to put the glue on after it's popped in so we don't make a huge mess. And then we're going to push those tabs up against the inside of these sections here. And you can see those tabs there. It's not that complicated. So I'm going to flip that tab down there. You can see that. I'm going to anchor the bottom first. Just throw a little bit of glue on there. Don't need to cover the whole thing. You can see that little bit of glue I got on there. And I'm just going to literally fold that over onto the inside of the structure. Now I'm going to make sure that I have it lined up correctly as I do that from the outside. Okay, so now I'm going to take and flare these tabs out. I'm going to do these, well actually, you know what, it doesn't matter which ones you do, as long as you're careful and you get them into their appropriate locations. Just throw a little bit of glue on those tabs. Spread it out nice and thin if you can. And then I would do it from this way. And you can't see my fingers in there, but I'm just simply taking those tabs and pushing them up against the internal structure here, making sure that it is in fact all the way out, meaning the windows protruding out as, I mean, actually, you know, once the tabs are being pushed up against this structure, there's really no reason why it wouldn't be all the way out. So I'm not really worried about that, to be honest. Okay, now we can flip that back over and get these 2 last little tabs here. Just put a little dot of glue on both of them, just like that. Okay, you can see the glue there. And we're going to take and push that tab over onto the inside of the structure, except that I'm just going to do it while I'm looking at it from the outside. It's just a lot easier. I can feel what my fingers are doing, but I want to be able to see what I'm doing visually here. Okay, and there you go. So our window's in. Now we can move along here to the next side. And again, I'm going to anchor it at the bottom. So I'm going to flip this tab up for that window and just throw a little line of glue on there. Okay, and that tab is going down onto this surface here. But I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do it from here. I want to make sure that that score line is meeting up with this white edge here. And it's holding nicely. There we go. Beautiful. And we can flip this over. And again, I'm going to go to these top two tabs here and fold them in on top of themselves, like that, just so I can get glue on them. And just a nice little line of glue will do. And I'll show you that here in a second. Let me just get it on there. Just like that. Okay, so you can see glue on that tab, glue on that tab, and then we're literally going to take and push those up against. So I'm taking it and I'm pushing it up against the interior wall here, but I'm looking from the outside here. It's just a lot easier for me to do it this way. I'm just pressing that tab up against the white roof here. Just make sure that that gets a good hold. There we go. Okay, so you can see now those tabs are up against the inner wall. So I'll fold these two final little tabs over and just do a little dot of glue on each of them, just like that. And we're going to fold that over onto the inside. And again, I'm just going to do it while I'm looking at it from the outside so I can make sure that everything is sitting nice and pretty. There we go. Just like that. Okay, so our windows are in place. All right, and again, I wanted to do that now while I could still get my hand in here a lot easier. And now I can go ahead and close this up on the front. I'm going to slide that into place. Okay, and that should meet up pretty much perfectly with the bottom as it is. And I think what we're going to do, I'm going to open this up so you can see from the inside there. What we're going to do is I'm going to glue the sides in place first here, these long tabs, okay, and just make sure that that's nice and flush with the bottom, okay, so you can see how we want that and this piece to kind of be on the same plane. Technically, it might be easier to explain it this way. We're going to pop that in, and you just want these two surfaces here, this door part and this part next to it, to be level on the same plane, I guess, is the best way to explain it. Okay, so just pop that in, push that in as far as you need to make sure that this and this are level. So if you were to put a piece of paper right here, they'd be sitting flat next to each other. You can see how they're flat, okay? So again, I'm going to begin by putting glue on these long tabs here. And I may probably just do both of them. Again, this is one of those things where you don't need to make sure that you get that glue spread out completely. I would just do a nice thin line right down the center, like that. Okay. And just pop that into place and push that up as far as it needs to go to be level. Get it level on this side and push that tab into place, and then we'll go over on this side, make sure that is level, and push that tab into place. There we go. That looks good, and that is perfectly level. So we did a good job. Okay, now there are some additional tabs up there And I've got a little bit of an area here that is not holding very well, but we can fix that very easily. So you can see how this is kind of not together. Let's find our scrap piece of paper. Where did you go? There you are. Okay, and I'm literally just going to take a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper and just paint a little bit of glue underneath onto that tab that's not holding. Just paint a little bit of glue on there and just press that into place. Make sure it's nice and flush there, and just hold that down. Make sure that it sets completely. Okay, now working from the inside, I may need to get my phone for this so I can shine a light in there for you. Okay, so all that's left to do now, there's a series of tabs here on the top arch, like the arch of the door. And just like we did with the windows, we're going to take these tabs that you can see there. You can see those little tabs there. We're going to glue them to the inside structure. So let me see if I can show you with one of them here. That's going to be kind of tough to show. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. Oh, you know what? I can actually open this back door and I can show you this way. Thank goodness for that thing. Okay, so you see the little tabs there. Okay, we're going to put glue on these and we're going to push them over onto that structure like that. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with the center. Okay, so you can see the center tabs there. And again, I'm holding a phone while I'm doing this. You're not going to have to do that. I got the glue on the middle two tabs, and I'm going to push them over onto the actual structure. Let me put this down for a second and check my work from the front. Make sure that I'm doing it right so that I don't mess up, and then I'll show you what it looks like from the inside. And just hold that in place for a moment. Let those tabs set. Make sure I'm holding the right ones. Actually wasn't. There we go. Okay. So I've made the connection here, right at that point. And let me show you what that looks like inside. Okay, so see those? I only did the first two. There's one that's still sticking up, but you can see the two tabs there that I glued to the inside. So now I'm just going to continue going down the row here and putting glue on the remaining tabs. They're tiny ones, so you only need a little tiny dot. Let me see if I can show you that here. You'll be able to see the glue because it's white. And I'll do two more here, two on each side. So you can see those two that I just did there. Those are two tabs. Okay, I'm going to take those tabs, I'm going to fold them over onto the inside structure like that. Okay, I need to do it from this side though, so I can see what I'm doing. And make sure that everything is nice and flush. And just give it a press. Shouldn't take more than a few seconds for each little tab. Just make sure that it's nice and flush. Okay, so you can see there's two of them there that I was able to get glued down, and it looks like you probably, with this, because it's a little angular, you want to just do two at a time. Okay, so I'm going to do the two right next to it, and just make sure that's all lined up nicely there from the outside, and just push those tabs into place. So you can see I just did those two, and I'm going to keep on going down the row here. Probably just do one side at a time. So it's not tricky, it's just that I don't know that it's that easy to go from one side to the other when you have to kind of flip it around, and one of these tabs is kind of going to be going at a little bit of an angle onto the roof part, which is fine. Just make sure that it's nice and flush there. Okay, I'll show you that from the inside. So I just got the next set of tabs in place, and that just leaves two more on this side. So I'll go ahead and put glue on these two. You can see them there on those tabs. There you go, there's a good highlight there. And then we'll just take those tabs and fold them over onto the inside wall and just press and hold until it sets. And grab that last one, press and hold until it sets. And you can see those tabs now. So now all that's left to do is just grab those there, get some glue on those, and just like that. I'm just going to put them all on there and get those glued into place. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So all we're doing is just taking those tabs and just gluing them to the inner wall of the base main structure here, just like we did with everything else so far. So I think you're going to get it. I think you'll be fine. Don't overthink it like I am. Okay, there we go. Most of our tabs are in place. Well, the ones that count. If there's any of them that are still sticking up, just throw a little bit of glue behind them and push them into place. But that is nice and solid for me. Okay, everything is looking good so far. Okay, so now I think the best thing to do at this point is to put our little skeleton piece in place to kind of hold everything together. And by skeleton piece, I mean this guy here. Okay, so you can see that this is going to be the front. Essentially, this is just the footprint for the entire bottom, but what we're going to do is we're going to stick it inside actually. And then we're just going to glue each of these tabs to this structure so that everything sits nice and flat, and ultimately it's a lot easier to put this piece on. This is the actual piece that's going to close it up. Okay, so pick a side. I would probably pick the largest side. Well, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe let's start. Yeah, let's start with either the front or the back. I'm going to start with the front because I think that's the most important. Okay, so with that said, what you can go ahead and do is get a little bit of glue onto this section here. Okay, and I just took this out because it's just easier to show you. We're going to stick this back in, all of it. And then you can see the part with the glue here. I'm going to put that right up there onto that tab. Make sure it's nice and centered. And glue that into place. Okay. And then I'm going to take this little tab here and throw a little bit of glue onto this little guy, just like that, and make sure that that's nice and flush up against that little skeleton piece, because we want to keep this nice and at a 90-degree angle. Okay, and then go ahead and put your glue on this little piece there, that little tab. Push this in, make sure it's 90 degrees, and then fold it over and glue it down to this little skeleton piece. Okay, now you can see how it's keeping this all nice and at a 90-degree angle. Now, what I would actually do here is, before gluing this down, glue this one down here, because we want to make sure that this is at a nice 90-degree angle too. So throw a little bit of glue onto this tab here. Okay, make sure it's all in there, and glue that down so that that wall is at you got 90 degrees here and 90 degrees here. You may not be able to butt it up all the way against the skeleton piece, but that's not the idea. The idea is to use it to help shape and keep this thing nice and in place. Okay, so now we can flip this piece up, throw a little bit of glue on it, and fold that down. That's looking pretty good. All right, now head on over here, and we're going to push this in. Make sure that it's at a 90-degree angle. So we'll throw a little bit of glue onto this tab here. This tab's got the Roman numeral 2 on it. Fold that in so it's 90 degrees here. And then push that tab over. Check your angles there. think that looks good. Okay, and then we can flip this up. Throw a little glue on there. Don't need a lot. And close that over. There we go. Beautiful. All right, now we'll go ahead and we can come over here. And you know what? Let's glue this tab down now. Just make sure you got everything nice and at the correct angle. Yeah, and the rest of it should just pretty much fall into place as it is. I'm going to glue this side down here. I think the rest of this is pretty much just whatever feels right. Okay, there we go. Get that glued into place. And then we'll throw some glue on this tab. And just fold that over onto this tab here. Just like that. And you can see how that's coming together very nicely. Okay, and now we're going to go over here and glue this little tab over so that we can keep this at a nice 90-degree angle as well. So fold that over onto our little skeleton piece and hold that in place for a moment. There we go. And let's do the same thing on the other side here. Just throw a little bit of glue on there. And see, I got to push this in a little bit to make sure that it stays at that 90 degrees. And fold that over. Keep it nice and tight. Make sure that it's staying at that 90. And there we go. And we can get some glue on this tab here. You can see that tab. Fold that over and press. There we go. We'll go down here. Spread that out a bit. And fold that in. And close this one up now. Just like that. You don't need to make sure that you get like perfect glue on everything. That is plenty, and technically this is all going to be on top of a base. It doesn't need to be perfect. No one's going to ever see it, but we do want it to be nice and flush. Okay, so I just put glue on that last little tab. I'm going to fold that over onto that last part of the little skeleton piece. Press it in there nice and tight. Nice and flush, make sure it's all making good contact. And there we go. Now she's very sturdy. And we've got a nice base going all the way around it so that we can go ahead and close her up, which we're going to do here in just a second. So you can see how nicely now that is going to fit on there. And that's going to close it up for us. There, that's actually better. Okay. So we're going to put our bottom on here in just a moment, and then we will finish her up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and close up our bottom. Now, there's a lot of surface area here, so don't be hard on yourself if you don't get it all done in one shot. Okay, but what we're going to do is, well, we're going to put some glue on the entire bottom here. Okay, and I'm going kind of thick because I'm going to be painting this glue out to the edges here. And then whatever doesn't stick, we're going to clean up using our little paint method with some scrap paper. Okay, so I'm going heavy here. I'm not worried about warping the paper because it's at the bottom, but I definitely want it to hold nicely, and I want it to be nice and solid. Keep everything in place. Get that glue out to the edge. Okay. And we're going to start at the front door because we obviously want to make sure that that looks the best. Okay, and if you're not comfortable painting with your finger, you don't have to. You can just try to stick it on there, and then you'll probably have to do a little bit more work with the painting method with the scrap piece, but that's okay. It's not a problem. Just paint that glue out to the very edge. I'm going to need more glue there, I just know it. Okay, so, whoops, let's bring it, no, there we go. Okay, and start at the front door. Just make sure that that gets nice and aligned first. I'm going to do that part first. Okay. And then if you need to nudge some things in, you can do so. You need to kind of squeeze the whole house in a little bit. But make sure that the front is nicely aligned first. And if you need to peel it off a little bit, you can. Like I said, there's a lot of surface area here, and we may need to go in and just do some painting. Okay, so there's a lot of surface area to cover when getting this bottom on, and there's a couple little areas where I just didn't have enough time to get it to sit properly before the glue set. So I'm just taking a scrap piece of paper, throwing a little bit of glue on there, and I'm just going to paint some glue onto the white part here. And I'm just going to push that into place manually, just like that. And if this bottom piece that kind of holds everything together doesn't go on perfectly, that's totally fine, totally normal, almost expected because of all the different angles and well, it's a tough little piece to get on, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be, you're not going to see it. And ultimately, we're actually going to put this on another base made of foam core, just because we want to kind of, take the presentation up another notch and make it look really nice and make it more permanent. So I'm just going around here and I'm finding the little areas where maybe I just didn't get enough glue, popping a little bit of glue in there and just pushing that into place and holding these little areas in place until everything is nice and flush and as perfect as you can possibly get it. Okay, just aim for excellence. Don't worry about perfection, and everything will work out just fine. Okay, so there's the house so far. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to put the roof on, and then we're going to put the sides on. So you want to find this piece. We're going to do this on both sides. Okay, and I think the best way to do this is to, well, first off, I want to make sure that I kind of give this a little bit of a curve. Okay, so here's the texture side. I'm going to put this down on my table with a little dowel. I'm going to grab the side without the scallops, kind of put it up at a 90-degree angle, and just pull this out. And you can see what that does. It kind of curves it a little bit. It's optional, but I think it's going to make our lives easier when we put this together. So what we want to do is we're going to anchor this first, since it's kind of a lot to handle in one fell swoop here. So throw a little bit of glue right up at the top and get that spread out to the very edge. Okay, and then we're going to position this into place. You want to make sure it's a little centered. It is going to come off the side by just a sliver. So kind of feel with your fingers here as we're putting this into place. Make sure that you can kind of feel a little bit of that edge on both sides, a very tiny bit. And if it's not going over, it's fine. It's not the end of the world, but it will look nicer if you can just make sure that it's slightly coming off. Okay, and just make sure you hold that. There's a little bit of resistance there, so be patient while that sets. And it'll make the rest of the process a lot easier for us. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side as well. Okay, so once you do this side, which I'll walk you through, you're going to do the other side. Okay, so just make sure that that is fully set. Okay, so it's going to be hanging off like that. And just make sure it's nice and flush up there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pull it taut and get that into place just like that. Now, you're gonna see the little edges in here, and that's fine. That's why we have another piece that's gonna cover that up. But to get that to sit, okay, what we wanna do, and we're gonna actually glue this all the way down so that the little scallops are nice and flat. So you can technically just put a little bit of glue right underneath the scallops and just paint that glue out onto the scallops, because it's gonna be kind of tough to, you can kind of just dab it onto the scallops. Okay, and we're gonna pull it nice and taut. So just kind of just smooth it onto the surface, and then just hold down on the scallops until everything sets nicely. Okay, and don't let go until you're sure that it's set. Okay, so just do that again on the other side. And then we can put the front and the back on, and then we can put our little Snowdrift overlays on that. And then we can move on to our roof. Okay, so we can kind of do the back here. Now you'll notice that we've got this little piece here that's gonna go right in there. And we're just gonna try to shove that all the way up as far as it'll go. Okay, so get your glue on this entire piece here. Okay, and if you want, you can just kind of dab, throw a little extra glue on there so you can get some on your finger, and just dab the little scallops there. You can put glue on it with your bottle if you'd like. You can just kind of hit the little scallops there manually with the bottle. I just like to use my finger. I feel like it's more accurate. Okay, so just pop that right into place. Go up. I'm going to kind of actually go up above. Oops, that's all right. We're going to put some, you want to hide the little imperfections there from the jaggedy connection. So you want to bring that up as high as it'll go so that the two edges kind of just meet together. Okay, you want them to kind of meet together there. And just push that and hold that into place, and it should pretty much seal perfectly. You can see how nice of a seam that is right there. It's actually very, very accurate. Okay, so just pop that, move that up into place until you've got that nice clean seam there. And then finally we'll put our little Snowdrift on there, and then it'll just all look very, very seamless. So let's do that again on the other side. Okay, so you can see, I'm going to show you here, you don't want it underneath the roof. You want to bring it up over that little piece a little bit so that it all just kind of looks like one solid piece. Okay, kind of like that. And you can see how seamless that looks. Let me show you from the side here. Okay, so you don't want it down here where you can see the little holes there. You want it kind of over that ever so slightly so that these two edges just meet perfectly. Okay, and we figured out the height so that everything is on the same plane, so to speak. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's get our glue on this whole piece here. And then I'm going to throw a little extra line there at the bottom so that I can just dab that onto my little scallops. There we go. Okay, and like I mentioned, bring it up a little bit so that we can hide that little section and try to make that look like all one seamless little piece. Now we're getting crafty here, guys and gals. Okay, and just hold that while it sets, and that looks perfect. Okay, so we're gonna have to do that same thing with the other side as well, obviously, because there's a front and a back. That looks really nice. So you can see how much more polished that little corner looks. Now if you've got any little areas that are still sticking up, make sure you press that down and hold it. But you can see how nice that seam looks now. Almost looks like there was never anything jagged there at all. Okay, so find your other two pieces that look like this. Okay, obviously this one's going to go here, and it's going to cover up that section there, just like that, just like we did on the back. Okay, so let's get our glue on this piece here. We'll go a little heavier there on the bottom and just get them on the scallops there. And it's okay if when you spread it, you get a little bit into the little center holes of the scallops, because this is going to dry clear. As long as it's not on paper, it's not really going to leave that glossy sheen that sometimes the glue will leave. Okay, so push that up against the structure, and then bring it up or down depending on where it needs to be to make that structure look nice and seamless. I actually did a better job on the back, but that's okay because we still have some snowdrifts that we can put on top of this to clean up any other little slight imperfections we may have. So don't need to worry about that too much, but that still looks really good. Okay, so let's head on over to this side and put our last piece on here. Let me clean off this nozzle. And then once we get those snowdrifts on, we'll go up to the roof. I see that time I actually just used my glue bottle to get the glue onto the little scalloped areas. So you can do it either way. Whatever you feel most comfortable with is fine with me. Okay, and then just pop it up nice and flush up against the structure, and then try to tie it into the little roof line from the side, and just hold that in place until it fully sets. I should have a nice, seamless looking roof there. Okay. And just keep holding it, make sure that everything is getting a good hold. And there we go, look at that. And that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so that just leaves our little snowdrifts. And just like we did with the actual roof, we're going to put the centers on first. Now this is glitter, and I may need to, I'm going to do the same thing I did with that other piece. I'm just going to kind of train it a little bit, just to kind of get it going in that direction so that it's a lot easier to apply. Okay, just like that. And we'll do it kind of the same way we did with the actual roof piece. We'll start by just putting glue right up at the top, and then we'll just pull it nice and taut and glue it down onto the middle or bottom section of the roof. So get that into place, make sure it's nice and centered, and just hold that in place until it's fully set. Make sure it's centered. Okay. Here we go. Be patient while that sets. You don't want to mess this up. Okay, there we go. Now we can take and we should be able to pull this back and throw a little bit of glue just onto the very, very end of this little snowdrift slash icicle situation. And I'm going to paint that glue out to the very edges. Okay. And then literally just take it, start up at the top, and just kind of smooth it on, and then hold it at the bottom. Hold all four of those little bottom sections in place and just be patient while it sets. Okay, there we go. And you can see how nicely that is sitting on there. Nice and smooth. Beautiful. Okay, so now we can go over here and find the little snowdrifts that go on the front. And just like we did with that brown piece, just gonna line this up nicely. And for this one, you can put glue on the entire piece. Just go real thin. Don't go too heavy with the glue. You don't want it. These are kind of the final stages here of the assembly. And this is where if you get a little glue that shoots out, it may just make a permanent home, adding a little bit of glossy sheen to your final project, which you know what, since it's winter, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but we're trying to just get better at our craft, so let's just try to get it right. Okay, so just get that lined up. Try to get it as flush as you can up to the structure here. And then also try to get it nice and flush with the piece that we already put in place. And just hold that nice and steady for a moment. Let that set. Okay, and the two pieces should pretty much join together. I think that looks just fine. There you go, you see that? Look at that. Okay, we can go on the back here and get this piece into place, just like the other one. Then we've got the main section on the other part of the side roof and the two little side pieces, and then we're pretty much on the home stretch. Everything after that is, well, once we get the roof in place, it's kind of just fun embellishments. Okay, so I just want to get a better angle at this and just pop that right into place. Make sure that that flat part is nice and flush up against the house, and that these sections here are nice and flush. And just hold all that down until it really fully sets. And sometimes it's tricky with the glitter. And I can tell that this part may need to flip up a little bit. There we go. Look at that. Nice, beautiful roof with some nice little snowdrifts on there. Okay, so I'm gonna head over to the other side and we're gonna do the same thing. So remember this guy here, I took my dowel and I put it just right at about the second third here. And I'll grab this end here, just kind of drag it and pull it up. I'll do that one more time. Just pull it up and you can see the kind of natural curve that it gives it. That's all we're interested in. So it's not fighting us. Now if you're using cardstock, you may not even need to do that because cardstock's it's not as stiff. This glitter's probably 100 pound, if not more, compared to the cardstock, okay? So get that nice and centered onto the roof here. You want to push it up against the structure, this main structure here, and press and hold that in place until it is fully set. Okay, and don't let go. Okay, so we've got that on, and just like we did before, you can kind of just flip this over, peel this back slightly, and get some glue on the very bottom of these snowdrifts. Okay, you can see me doing that. I'm going to spread that glue out to the very, very tips so that those sit nice. And then I'm going to just take and smooth this on. So I'm kind of starting up here, just applying a little bit of pressure, smoothing it right on, and then just holding it at the very bottom here at all four of these points to make sure that they sit nice and flat and flush for me. And hopefully that top part is sticking. Okay, all right, so we've got that piece in place. Now we want to find our little snowdrift for the front or the back, whichever one you want to do first, that's fine. And let's get that into place. So take your glue and you want to apply glue to this entire little section here. And just either dab it or spread it out so that we don't get too much on there. We get a bunch of it squirting out. And just grab it wherever you feel comfortable with it. Pop it in there. Make sure that flat side is up against the structure as far as it'll go. And that you've got this matching up and lining up with the top of the roof. nicely. Okay, so that is sitting nice, and then we just have one more little piece on the back that we need to glue on, and we can get to the roof here. Okay, whoa there, glue. Good to see you, but I didn't want to see that much of you. Okay, all right, last little section here for our Snowdrift. And I'll probably grab it from this little tip here and push it up against that structure. Make sure it's a little bit higher so that the little edges meet with the side of the roof here. And then push those pieces down as well. Just kind of hold it all in place and just make sure it all sets nicely. Okay, so you can see how that's sitting on there. And we need to give that one a little extra love here in a minute, but for now, I'm just going to hold this down and make sure that everything sits nicely. Okay, so we've got all the sides pretty much in place. Everything looks great. Okay, the bottom's on, and we can go ahead and start working on our roof here. Okay, so we are on to our roof piece now, and it should be pretty simple. As you can see, there's going to be sections that are cut out, and those are going to go right over the little windows. Okay, and once you get one side on, the other side's going to sit nice. And the reason we did this last is because we're kind of jostling things around. I didn't want to accidentally bend the roof at all. So to get this in place, what we're going to do is we're going to focus our glue on just the perimeter. Okay, so just get some glue on the perimeter. It doesn't need to be, you don't need a ton. Okay, and then we're going to spread that out. If you've got any areas that are kind of blotchy with a little bit too much, just kind of spread it out. Try to get it out to the very edge if you can, but be careful down there. Okay, and then also let's get a little bit around the windows. It's almost like caulking around a window. Okay, and just get it around the windows there like that. And then, oh, you know what, I forgot a little bit down here. There we go. And just start with just kind of get it sitting on top of the peak that's already there. And center it, and then just push down just over the little windows here. There might be a little bit of resistance, and that's fine, that's normal. And then just press that down into place and hold it. Just kind of work around the little perimeter areas where we had our glue. Make sure it's making good contact, just like that. And there we go. Now, you can take this and flip it over, get it out of the way so that we can apply our glue to the back. Okay, and here I'm just going to go real thin around the perimeter, just like that. If you've got any blotchy areas, just kind of spread that out a little bit, dab it, spread it, whatever you got to do, and fold that down. And press that down gently, and just work your hand around that perimeter area that has the glue, because the scallops actually go over it. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're pushing down in the right spots, just to make sure that it's holding in the correct areas. Okay, that looks good. Now take a look at it from the side, and if you have any little areas where the roof is kind of peeling back, that side looks good. This side looks like it could use a little extra love. So just grab your scrap piece of paper, okay, and then just stick it onto, I'll show you here. You see this little area here that just didn't hold? I'm just going to paint a little bit of glue right into that little corner, just like that, and then just push that down and hold it. Okay, just give that a little extra time to set. Take a look at the rest of your work. Everything looks pretty good. Maybe this side too could use a little extra love. And I just want to show you that. Just kind of lifting it up, painting a little extra glue in that little area. Remove any excess that may have spilled out, and just push and hold that little spot in place until it sets. Okay, and then we've got our little brown panel piece, because it's a gingerbread house, so it's got to be made of gingerbread, right? And that's going to go right on there, and that should fit just perfectly on there. If I didn't have to glue it, I wouldn't, but you want it to stay on. But you can see how nice that fits on there, and how nice that's going to all look once it's all said and done. But I'm going to take this off real quick. And now this time, since we don't know where to put the glue on this piece, we're going to actually have to put the glue onto this surface here, which is fine. We'll just take our time, and we want to get that glue out to the scallops. So do a little circular motions around by the scallops here. You gotta work kind of quick. There's a lot of surface area to cover. Do your best to get it in as many areas as you can. And then also, again, we're gonna try to get a little bit of caulking around the windows here, just so that this sits nice and flush for us. Just like that, okay? And then we can go ahead and slide it right on there. Start with the peak, make sure that it's sitting nice and flat on that roof, and then just push that into place. There we go. And then you can just kind of take your fingers and squeeze right here at the little scallops, make sure that sits, and then also just make sure it's making good contact here in these little areas that we so-called caulked. Okay, there we go. And that's pretty good, I'd say. All right, now we can flip her over, grab this piece, move it out of the way. You can actually flip it up pretty far out of the way. And grab our glue and just work our glue. I think mostly just concerned about the very ends here. We don't really need to cake the rest of this up with glue, because once these are holding, nothing else is going to move. And I'm not even concerned about the peak of the roof, because that's gravity's doing that job. I guess we can just throw a little bit on there for safe measure, and then just fold that down, make sure it's nice and flush up there on the roof, and then just kind of like you're making a pie crust, just work your way around these scallops and press down, make sure every little section's making good contact. Okay, and there we go. Hit it one more time with your pie making skills. And there we go. Okay. And now we do have a little bonus, a little snowdrift for the top. And we just want to get that nice and centered. It's going to be hanging off ever so slightly on either side. Doesn't matter. Now the only thing you do want to make sure is that you'll notice that on this little snowdrift there's a specific little triangle here. And that triangle is going to sit right above the little window here. Okay, it's the only one that kind of encroaches onto that window, and that's fine. Okay, so when we put this snowdrift down, we want to make sure that you see this little section here where it's got a little triangle cut out. That triangle is going to go right above the house, okay, or I'm sorry, above this window, and that's how you know you have it in the right spot. Okay, so let's open this up and let's get our glue on this whole piece here. And you can probably not worry about going all the way out to the very edge on the little rabbit ear section here. It kind of looks like a little rabbit. Okay, and just work your glue onto this whole piece. This is a glitter, so the back is not going to absorb as quickly. I've got a little more time to get this piece on and do what I need to do to make sure it sticks. Okay, and then I'm going to try to get that glue out to the very edges of some of these sections here so that it sits nice and flush for me. I can already tell that it's starting to set, so I'm not going to waste any more time. And I'm just going to kind of pop that onto the top of the roof, get that little triangular section nice and centered so that it's sitting right above the little window there. And just run your fingers across this whole thing and pushing down onto the little snowdrifts that are kind of drooping there. Just make sure that those are sitting nice and flush. If they're not, luckily we're smart and we can just take a little bit of glue onto our scrap piece and just paint it right under into that little section that might need a little extra glue, and just press that and hold that down in that specific area until it's nice and flush. Okay, and actually even if it isn't totally flush, it still looks kind of cool because it almost like adds a little bit of dimension to it. So whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do, there's no, I don't think there's any wrong way to do this right now. This is just kind of, well, like the icing on the cake. Kind of looks like icing, doesn't it? Okay. All right, so there we have it. And now all it's left to do is, well, it's almost time for embellishments. We've got just the little roof pieces for our windows to put on. Okay, so you can kind of see how that's going to go on. You want to make sure you fold that. And then what I would do is I would just put some glue right up to the very front edge. Okay, and then maybe just a little bit almost towards the back, almost in that corner. Not quite, because you don't want to spread that out so it comes shooting out onto this surface. But pop that onto the, the peak of the roof. Make sure that's sitting nicely, just like that. I'm pushing down right here on the peak, and then just go ahead and push the sides down and into place. And then as you're doing that, give it a push back a little bit, so it's as flat and flush up against the roof as possible. Okay, and I did have a little bit of glue that came spilling out here on the side. We still have one more piece that's going to go over this, but I'm going to try to get that glue out of there if I can. I don't want it to blemish my project. Just make sure you take it off with a little extra piece of paper. It's almost like that. It's almost like a wick. Okay, there we go. So that's on. And then we're going to take this piece and glue this piece on that piece. Okay, and it's just going to sit like that. So let me see here. Yeah, we can actually literally put glue on this entire section here. I'll move that out of the light, just like that. And we'll just pop that into place. Now remember, if you want to follow the design, your longer little snowdrift / icicle thing is going to be on the right-hand side facing the center of our structure. Okay, so again, just start by just aligning where it's creased in the center with the existing pitch of the roof, the peak, and just hold that, and then go ahead and push that back as far as it'll go, while making sure that these little snowdrifts stay stay on this side of the actual roof so that they're up in front like that. Okay, and that looks pretty darn good. I'd say that's a good job. Okay, all right, so there's our cute little roof with the snowdrifts on the windows, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side now. So again, let's get our glue right up to the very edge here on the face of our window. And just a little bit back there. Go really light on the glue back there. Just like that. And kind of spread that out a little bit. A little thick. Okay. And just pop that. Just kind of connect it with the peak. Let it rest on the existing peak of that window. And then just go ahead and just push that down into place on both sides. There we go. Just like that. Okay. And grab your little snowdrift piece. We can put glue on this entire interior here. Don't overdo it, but get enough to where it'll stay. Just like that. And again, start by just letting it kind of rest on the peak of the roof. Slide it back as far as it'll go. And then just push it down into place, making sure that the little snowdrifts on the front are still in the front and not sitting flat up against the roof here. Okay, and just hold that in place until it sets. And there we go. Okay. All right, so all that's left now, we can put this on its back. Remember our little candy cane here? Well, we're going to pop that in place. Okay, now you'll notice again, we talked about this earlier, there are some markers here to help you with the positioning of this, just to get it centered. And also, the bottoms of these are going to be flush with the bottom as well. So, in essence, what we can do, just to make this easier, is actually put our glue on this surface here, but keep it inside. You don't want to go inside, you want to keep it on the outside of the score mark areas. That's kind of a boundary. You don't want to bring it in past that boundary. Just keep it here. Okay, and I'm erring on the side of caution here, and I'm not even getting anywhere near those score lines. Keeping it as far away as I can. Okay, so again, use those little guides to help you center it. Make sure that the bottom of this little archway is flush with the bottom of the house, and then just work your way up, pressing down onto the rest of this to get these into place. And hold that until it's fully in place. There we go. Okay. Look at that. Look at that thing. Yeah, it's looking awesome. Okay. Okay, so now time for some fun stuff here. We've got our little candy cane urn pieces here. We're going to take and use some foam squares to pop those right onto the front of our house. And I think probably 2 or 3 of these will do. Okay, so I'm going to put one right up here, and then another one there. And I'll grab my little tool here to help me peel these up. And the idea with this is you want to center it onto the front here, and you also want the urn to kind of be sitting flat on the surface, so you want it to be flush with the very bottom. Okay, I mean, it could be a little bit higher, up a little bit more, I guess. It doesn't need to be completely flush, but you want it to look like it's sitting on the ground and that it's straight up and down, kind of like that. Okay, there we go. And we'll get the other one in place. Let's do that. And there's one there and one there. Peel the backing off this. If you have those little 3D pop dots, you can use those too. For stuff like this, I've actually not been using the pop dots a lot lately because I find that they don't always stay in the spot that you put them. I kind of don't like that. Okay, so just kind of center that as best as you can. Make sure that it's pretty flush with the bottom. And just press that into place. That one's a little bit higher. I'll bring that one down a bit. There we go. Okay, so there's that. A couple other things too. We have the this little candy cane that we're going to put up on the roof. And it's doubled up, so it's 2 layers. Just to be a little bit thicker, we're going to glue, in my case, the pattern piece on top of the cardstock piece. And I'll show you where that goes. Okay, so just line that up nicely. Got a nice little easy thing to do here after all that. Again, this project was not tough. It's just time consuming, but fun. And if I wasn't doing this on camera, I'd probably be listening to some John Williams, some Christmas stuff maybe, some Carol of the Bells, one of my faves. Okay, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to put a foam square right here, Okay, and this thing is literally just gonna hold on. Well, you know what? Let's add a couple more. I'm gonna add one down here. Actually, you know what? I'll show you a little trick here. Grab your scissors if you want. You can literally cut these in half by just cutting them. And then that way I can put a little thin one on here so it's not as visible in case you catch a glimpse of it from the side. Okay, so we got half a square there. So we'll peel this off and I'll show you where our little candy cane is going to go. And then I'm going to embellish this with, and I'll show you what we have to make it look like there's little gumdrops on the project. But anyway, this little candy cane here, the little top of where they join, you want that to kind of be in line with the top of the roof. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that that's nice and centered. Press that down into place. I'm also gonna adorn that with a little bow. Okay, so you see where that goes. There's gonna be a bow here, a bow here, a bow here, and a bow up here, just to kind of cover up this little area. And that's pretty much it, aside from the two little pieces of holly that we have, which you can see there. And those are just going to get glued onto these little sections here. You'll notice that there are a series of little score marks there to help you with the placement of these little holly leaves. And now we did these in a this is like a green satiny foil. And what you want to do is you want to squeeze them together to give them a little bit of dimension. Okay, so they start out flat. Just kind of press in the center with your fingernail or whatever, and just squeeze them together. And especially at the tip here, just kind of squeeze at the tip. And that's going to kind of make them pop out more and have some dimension. So just go ahead and do that with your little holly leaves. It's a little bit tougher for me because this is a foil, but I managed to work it out. Okay, and what you want to do, you're going to do that process twice. We're just going to put a little bit of glue onto where the berries are going to go. Okay, so just a little tiny little bit there, and then you're going to glue that right into that little section where we've kind of made a little score line reference to this piece. Make sure that it's aligned correctly as well. Okay, so you're going to do that there. The other one's going to go here. And that pretty much wraps it up. Take a look at the final photo so you can see where we put the bows and how we did. Oh, let me show you the little gumdrops here. Okay, so these are actually got at the dollar store. And we're gonna put a bunch of these on the roof to kind of make it look like there's little gumdrops in it or whatever it is that they put in gingerbread. I'm like gluten-free, so I don't really eat a lot of pastries, I guess you'd say. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, no, it's not. Almost forgot. So your gingerbread house is gonna cut out a piece like this. And this is, well, it's twofold. It's a template so that you can cut out a little base out of foam board, okay? So what you want to do, and I think the best way to do this, is to use a corner of a piece of foam board that's already, cut nicely by a machine, and just line it up with the very edge of that, okay? Just make sure it's nice and centered, and then literally just take a utility knife or an X-Acto knife or whatever you have, and pardon my head, just follow that line on the template to cut yourself a little base. Because what we're going to do, again, to make this a little more permanent, and that by no means was perfect, but once you throw some ribbon on there, it's going to look fine. And I can always trim a little bit if I feel like I didn't do a good job. Okay, but anyway, use this as a template, and then actually we're also going to take this piece that I'm using as a template and glue it to the top of my foam board. Okay, so there's my piece. That wasn't too bad. Okay, let me move this out of the way. I'm gonna glue this to the top here. Okay, so that's gonna make it look nice on top of the foam board. And then we just literally can take and glue this to the structure here. We'll get it nice and centered. And then I'm gonna actually put a little bit of ribbon around the outer edge of that just to kind of make it look a little more polished. But that's totally optional. This thing is really sturdy the way it is. This is an optional piece. I would recommend it though, because it's gonna definitely increase the longevity. It'll be less likely to get, beat up. So anyway, again, as I was saying, take a look at the final photo as well as the trailer to see where and what we did as far as, embellishments and such, especially these little pop-up, I don't even know what they are. Just little embellishments. And, you can really take this to a whole nother level by adding little gumdrops and candies to it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the process. If you did, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. We are now at, no, it's off, 26,000, I think. So thank you to everyone that's subscribed, and I love watching that number go up, so hit that subscribe button. And if you make this or anything from our new, I think it's called Gingerbread Junction, we'd love to see it. So join us in the official Dreaming Tree group on Facebook. Head over to your search box in your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree group. You can join myself and the 16,000 plus other dreamers that inspire us daily. So I hope you guys enjoyed and loved the project as much as I did. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to crafting with you again.